Episode 15.
Are you ready to take your eBay business to the top? Well, if so, buckle up and hold on. It's time once again for So You Want to Sell on eBay with your hosts, Ron LeBeau and Ali Young.
Creating an eBay store these days is not that difficult a task. Creating a custom eBay store is. So if you're thinking of starting an eBay business, or even if you're a titanium power seller, let the professional team at AuctionProTemplates.com create a custom eBay store for you.
Welcome once again to another episode of So You Want to Sell on eBay. I'm Ron LeBeau.
And I'm Ali Young.
Today we have the very special guest with us, Miles Clemans, and he comes all the way to us from Australia. How you doing, Miles?
Hey, nice to see you guys online.
Yeah, great to have you with us today, Miles. We're looking forward to a good old chit-chat.
Yes, sir. All right, well, Miles is the Managing Director of inDemand eCommerce, an eBay and Magento solutions provider. eBay has been the cornerstone of inDemand for the last 8 years, becoming the largest certified eBay education specialist in Australia back in 2006. inDemand now manages eBay sites for very large global and Australian brands such as Telstra, Dell Australia, Bonds, Hardyakka and Mossimo. An important and growing part of its suite of offerings is M2E Pro, a connector between Magento and eBay. The letter M is a major feature of inDemand's offerings, marketplaces, Magento, management, and now M2E Pro. Miles, I've given our listeners just a brief overview of you professionally, but let's find out just a little bit more about you personally. Can you tell us a little bit about you, please?
Yeah, continuing on that theme, Ron, of M. So my name is Miles, and I live in Melbourne, Australia, a lovely part of the world. And eBay has been a part of my life for the last 10 years. Absolutely love it. And then eBay did something fantastic a couple of years ago. They bought a company called Magento based in Los Angeles. And that's even grown our business further. But it's been a long journey. I started off as a lawyer in my previous life, and then in finance, working in Taiwan and Singapore, I worked in finance. And now we started this business about 10 years ago called inDemand, based on eBay training. It was only training back then, and it's grown, as you mentioned in the bio, to become a management service where we manage large brands' portfolios on eBay.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. That's a high-end stuff. And I heard you mention you're using that M2E Pro as well. You're integrating everything as well, yeah?
Well, that's right. Listing software is very important, as you'll know, when it comes to managing large volumes online. And there's so many solutions out there, some very good solutions, Channel Advisor, eSeller, Pro, and what have you. And the one that we've settled on, which has really grown our business dramatically, is M2E Pro. And it's actually free of charge. Yep. So why would we do it? It's because there is a configuration element. And Magento, I should mention, is a great e-commerce software, is also free of charge, open source software. But you do need good developers and integrators to get it singing. And that's what we do. So we can really get large volumes onto eBay and website through M2E Pro. That's growing nicely in our business.
Do you ever find, because we've worked on some stuff with Magento, do you ever find it's a little bit so in-depth, it's really such a powerful system that it can be a bit slow sometimes?
There's ways to speed it up, again, through back-end development. But you're right, it's a bit like Photoshop. You know, there's about 10,000 functions on Photoshop, and how many would we really need? Maybe 100, 150 core functions. And Magento is like that. But I'd rather have too much functionality than too little.
Yeah, spoiled for choice, you know. And it's really, this is the day and age we live in. I mean, you're talking about some big power sellers out there, talking some big eBayers out there who are listing so many products that you can't do the old-fashioned copy and paste, put it inside of eBay no more. You need these types of systems like yourself where you can just do this in like a couple of days. It's really powerful systems.
Correct. One thing also about M2E Pro is that it connects into Amazon and it connects into Rakuten. Just by being part of that new portfolio, we're actually now helping some of our clients move on to offshore marketplaces in Amazon and now in China also through Tmall, New Zealand, and Magento is powering all of that through its connector M2E Pro.
Wow, that's amazing. And does the M2E Pro handle the inventory? So is it all integrated?
Yes. As you sell something on website, it decrements from your web inventory and decrements from eBay or Amazon. So it's always kind of synchronized. You're not going to oversell. That's the real kind of essence of multi-channel marketing, I guess. Then it will feed straight into your orders into one dashboard. So your eBay orders, your Amazon orders, your Rakuten, and your website orders appear in one dashboard. Otherwise, it's so fragmented and it's a nightmare to run if you've got volume.
It's very impressive stuff and, highly recommended. So let's start off with more about you then. We always like to ask our guests about someone in their life who sort of helped you get where you are. I mean, you've mentioned you're a lawyer. I mean, it sounds like you've had quite an experienced sort of life, really. But has there been someone who sort of helped you along the way, sort of, you know, got you out of the fear or sort of guided you in the right direction?
I think there's two people by implication. The first one, it sounds twee, but it is my wife, who... It's been a long journey. I'm a late starter in the online space. I was at the Facebook offices in Sydney just yesterday, and, you know, the average age there was 20, 22, and I'm double that. So I feel I've come late in the piece, and she's been by my side through that kind of development from law and finance into this new world, new retail world. Without her, it would not have happened. Without her indulgence and her patience, it would not have happened. And there have been testing times where she's saying, why don't you just do whatever all of our friends and peers are doing? But she's stuck by me, and she actually became part of the business. And through that, we just grew. And now she has an offshoot business in the same field, which is probably fodder for another interview at another time, fundraising on eBay. But she has been my inspiration and my guiding light, because at the end of the day, get advice from her, little directions. She'll seek advice from me. So we interplay with each other, but we don't work directly with each other in the business. So we actually have a normal kind of family relationship, not just a business relationship. The second person is, it's not just law and finance that I worked in. After finance, I went into the event industry and set up a conference company on behalf of a media unit. And I'd have to say the managing director of that media company, without him knowing, was my inspiration. I feel bad that I never actually told him how much I admire him. But here was a guy, he must have been about 55 years old, who had struggled in this business to grow it. But when I arrived, he must have had maybe 10 staff and was doing quite well then. His daughter took me aside and told me what a struggle it had been. It was a family business. It just gave me some hope and inspiration that it's never too late to start new ventures. He was a journalist, and he decided to get out of that rat race and make his own business in production and publishing. And it was just wonderful to observe how at age 55 his business was really coming into full force. And I might say his hiring of me in the conference unit was, for him, a godsend, because conferences at that time was just huge business. It kind of helped him to go even a step further, and he hired then a larger conference unit. Working together and feeling the passion and the sense of hope that it's never too late. You can find your calling, but even if you're in your 30s, 40s, it's not too late. You don't have to be a startup teenager building apps in the backyard. It's never too late. So as I say, I feel bad that I've never actually set him aside and said, you know what, you are an inspiration to me. I think he'd be chuffed. Maybe I will pick up the phone and say, how's it going? Because we haven't worked with each other for the last 10 years. But maybe I should just give him a call and a reminder to say, you have been an inspiration, and now I've grown through you.
That's awesome, Miles. And I'll tell you, you say about your wife, and, there's a saying, behind every great man is a great woman. I can speak to that as well. I mean, seriously, if your spouse isn't on board with you, it really makes things a lot more difficult. And to your managing director, how cool is this that he doesn't even know the impact he's had on you, and perhaps as a result of this conversation, maybe you'll give him a call and just change his day, for the good, and it's just kind of neat. Every once in a while, you get a call like that out of the blue. He has no idea that it's happening, and you're going to give him a call. I think that's pretty cool.
I think it's important to do that. And funnily enough, I went to a networking event, an eBay networking event just a month ago. I met a woman there that I'd known for maybe 5 years, but known as in we bump into each other, we say hi. She said she'd give me a lift back after the event. We lived close by. And she said in the car, she got started on her eBay business through one of our training sessions 5 years ago, and it changed her life. And now she's quite a heavy trader. And that was quite inspiring for me, because one never really knows what the impact is, negative or positive, unless people tell you. And so this has inspired me to pick up the phone and just remind people that they are important, and it goes beyond just business. There are certain messages and directions that they give you in life.
Yeah, and what a real inspiration that is. eBay, in my opinion, is one of the cheapest businesses you can get into, and you can start out as a hobby. You don't really have to invest a whole lot of money into it. And then you could build an empire if you choose to. I mean, someone who attended your classes is now probably making a decent living doing this. It can be for anyone. I mean, anyone can start this and build a good business, a good reputation within the eBay industry, and make a good living with it.
Yeah, now we get into the intricacies. It was a bit easier a few years ago to make a start on eBay, and it still is possible, but it's harder. I don't know if you'll agree with that, Ron, but, I look at eBay today, it is dramatically different to what it was 5-10 years ago. Because we're working with some of the larger brands, eBay really works hand in glove with those brands and gives them a kick up, or a leg up, as we say. It's never too late. There's always possibility to do well, but I feel it's not enough just to do eBay by itself these days. You need to have a social media exposure. You need to look at other channels and not focus on just that singular eBay channel, because it's very crowded now. So I guess that's my learnings over the years, is to diversify. And through that, that's why I've moved into the Magento e-commerce world. I've moved into offshore marketplaces such as Amazon, because eBay by itself, as big as it is, it's very crowded. You may or may not agree.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. You know, it's a huge place, and it has changed over the years. And also the thing when you're using M2E Pro as well, you now have the power to link to these other systems now. You can link to Amazon and all these other places. And, you know, and that's pretty much, I mean, if you want to sell products, being all over the place makes more sense. But for the exposure, as in, you know, being able to be, I have a product and I need an audience to see it, eBay is really good for something like that, because I think you would get more people coming to view your product than you would if you just sold it on a normal website, for example.
Correct. And to their credit, I think eBay have recognized this as well. The conversation 5-10 years ago was that we are eBay. If you ever cross-promote to a website or have a URL in your listings, we'll take you down. I think they realize those days are over. This is the multi-channel, new retail, omni-channel world. And they actually work in alignment with other brand strategies. So they've come to that full circle as well. In fact, I attended a Magento conference last year where the keynote speaker was John Donahoe, I think former CEO of eBay, who was saying it is a totally new world. There's no reason why eBay could not work with bricks and mortar retailers in your average shopping mall. There are tools and apps through PayPal and eBay that any corner store could take advantage of, not on an online sense, but in an offline world through mobile apps and tablets and kiosks and pop-up stores. And that, to me, is very exciting. That's why I love being in this space, because there is so much room for growth personally and in a business sense, so that you don't only have to focus on the online world. If you're an eBay entrepreneur, you can actually start to think about the offline world and how they might benefit from these tools.
Definitely,
yeah. And, you know, I was out in eBay last week in San Jose, California, and one of the guys I was talking to out there, first of all, their culture out there is pretty cool. The environment to work in is just really nice, and I think if you're an eBay employee, you know, you got a pretty good environment to work in. I think eBay really understands the growing pains that they're going through right now. He talks about different things that people are complaining about, and they're working toward resolution to those so that it's a better experience. I mean, like any business, there's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be some things they have to do. But, you know, 10 years ago, we didn't have the social media aspect of this, right? So, as you stated, eBay is not by itself. You have to do the social media thing and other avenues as well.
Yes. You know, some eBay sellers have kind of resisted when I talk to them about additional marketing spend. So go invest in a Google display ad, or you can actually advertise through the eBay e-commerce network to get people to your eBay listings. And they're saying, well, we're paying enough fees to eBay of itself. Why should we pay extra for marketing? Because that's what it takes to stand out. And, you know, if you're a website merchant, a pure play website merchant, no eBay, no marketplace, we know that your cost of acquisition is probably going to be higher than the average eBay fee of 8-10% commission. Factor that into your marketing budgets. Don't set and forget. You've got to do that bit extra. Have a YouTube channel that just gives you more traffic and brings you to the eBay store or your web store, or wherever you want the shopper to end up.
Absolutely. Okay, hey, Miles, let's move on just a little bit now and talk about a failure that you experienced, because our listeners are coming from all different avenues, right? And they're coming from all different places. Sometimes, you know, when you go through a failure, it's a really tough struggle. So we all have failures in businesses and personal life. So tell us about a failure that you experienced, and then how did you overcome that failure?
Great question. A few years ago, the business started to grow, and had a conversation with my wife and staff. We need to start marketing and branding, and why don't we invest in a trade show and just get our message out there, and we'll have some kind of trade show specials and acquisition loss leaders, so to speak. So we invested quite heavily in an exhibition area, and we sponsored the conference, and it felt so great for the ego. This is inDemand. We're here.
Yeah.
Here's our logo. It was impressive. People so, But when I look at the results of that trade show, it was actually negative. The reason is we took on way too many customers at way too low a price, and our systems fell over. I don't think our customers were so impressed by us because there was a backlog of work. We couldn't get to their needs in time. And I learned from that, don't underprice yourself and just spend money to have that ego thing to say, look, we're here. Do it more tactically and strategically. But now I'm coming around to reinvesting. It's time to try that again, but do it a bit more wisely. Not go out with any kind of lowball special, come with us and you won't be sorry. It just doesn't work that way. It's actually been a lesson in pricing ourselves. If you're too cheap and you get too many customers who actually don't value your service, it doesn't do them any benefit and it doesn't do you any benefit. So that was the learning from that, I guess.
Yeah, that's a huge learning curve as well. I mean, you've learned a lot. You've learned your price isn't good. I've been guilty of that one myself. You take on so much work. You have that backlog. You have that problem of maintaining it, and it becomes stressful. But those lessons are really important. Without those types of lessons, and charging stuff too cheap, you have to learn from this. And that's what I love about failures in particular, is that you get that chance to see, wow, that didn't quite go as planned, and move on and change it.
Yes, but then it made me think. So yesterday I had the good fortune to travel to the offices in Sydney of Facebook and Groupon. And I looked at their staggering growth. I mean, they talk about their growth in their presentations, and their beautiful offices, really fancy, lovely offices, and their wonderful staff culture. Everybody seems got a smile on their face, and there's food and drink, Red Bulls.
Wow.
And I think to myself, did they make the same mistakes that I made? How come it took them 3 years to get where I've got maybe in 8-10 years? I think the founders of those companies were geniuses. They just had something in their genes that made the learning curve that much faster. They probably had good mentors. Obviously, they had good, solid investors and backers behind them. But at the end of the day, yes, Facebook might have achieved that in 3 years or 4 years, and Groupon in even less time. But we're all working towards personal development and growth, whether it happens in 10 years or 2 or 3 years. As long as we're all growing and learning from mistakes, I cannot imagine that Facebook hasn't made a mistake. In fact, we know Apple has made mistakes, and plenty of them. Do they have the mentors and the financial backers to warn them in advance? And some people don't, some people do.
Right, and to that point, I mean, we haven't seen behind the scenes before the 3 years or before the 5 years. What kind of mistakes have they made along the way before it went public, and so that we could see it.
Correct.
Yeah, and you see all these autobiographies of all these successful entrepreneurs. They all talk about failures. Some of them all talk about how they've made their money and lost it, and made it and lost it. I mean, it's just part of doing business, and I think it's the fear part. If you are willing to keep trying that something eventually will kick in. Some previous lesson that you've learned will kick in, and then you'll start heading down the road where it doesn't feel so bumpy.
I take a lot of inspiration from Malcolm Gladwell and his books. And there was one book, I forget the title, but he talked about the 10 years overnight success. And even Bill Gates was tinkering away, or 10,000 hours. Any successful entrepreneur is going to be tinkering away or doing something for 10,000 hours before they make a success of themselves. And even Bill Gates, he was working in his garage from age 12 on a computer, probably making a lot of mistakes. He wasn't the overnight success that people think. It happened 10 years prior. So I do agree with that.
Okay, well, let's flip it to the other side then. I mean, we've heard some failures, but has there actually been some, well, I imagine there has been some real successes that are sort of, yes, this is it. Me and the wife are doing the right thing. Have you had a few of those?
I had one a month ago. It was a personal one. I don't know if your listeners will relate to it, but for me, it was just a coming of age, and it happened through IT and technology. One of the things we get asked of the most from an eBay merchant or a large business on eBay is, I want a new look and feel on eBay, but I don't want to delist my listings because of the best match trading history. How can I get a new look and feel without having to end my listings? Now, the odds are if you go to a channel advisor or to a new platform, it's unavoidable that you're going to have to end your listings and start again. And it'll take you a couple of weeks to get back in the sales groove. It's not the biggest loss in the world, but I think eBay merchants have this great kind of bond about their past sales history, and they don't want to lose it. I had that eureka moment, as they say in Australia, where I managed to do it. I managed to revise 1,000 listings without having to end any of them. And I did that through M2E Pro, and I feel it's a secret. Like, nobody really knows how to do it except me. And I feel so proud. It's taken 10 years to get to that point where I can actually turn around a listing without having to end it, but do it in volume, great volumes, 1,000, 2,000 items. So I know I can take this to the marketplace and now have a competitive advantage. I don't know if you can relate to this, but eBay sellers do not like ending listings.
No way. Definitely not. And to have that power where you've just updated 2,000, to me, that gives me a serious hit. I mean, that's just, because the other way to do that is exactly what you said, end listings, which 2,000, that's just silly, and then recreate it all again. I mean, this is what I love about modern day technology, and especially stuff with eBay, all these integration systems. They take away all this hard work that it used to be.
I suppose the other exciting moment was to get approached by Australia's largest company, which is Telstra. It's a massive telecoms company. It's had a monopoly. Now it's not so monopolistic, but it's a very, very cashed up company. And they approached us and said, you know what? We don't have a retail online presence whatsoever. They've got thousands of stores, bricks and mortar stores around Australia, but they want to have a play and get that experience online. And as I've heard so many times by large brands, we're not allowed to hire more staff to do this, so we're going to completely outsource this, and you're the selected partner we'd like to work with.
Wow.
Nice. It's just a moment of achievement, wow, that people recognize that we can trust us. And it is about trust. It's not just about pricing. And I think that's where the legal background comes into it a bit. We're not going to leave them high and dry. There is some kind of corporate responsibility that we take. And now we've been with Telstra for the last year, and they're learning, we're learning. It's been a wonderful partnership. I got a phone call from them the other day. Oh, could we do a Facebook store for them? Could we do a website for them? So that's going to grow and develop, I feel.
And that's awesome, man. And it's like you said, it's a relationship that will build and grow into something that 2 or 3 years from now, you can't see.
Correct. So it's a very exciting space to be in. As you can probably feel my excitement. Not a day goes by.
I certainly can.
I pinch myself what a lovely space it is to be in.
Oh, I mean, it sounds great. And do you know what? It must make you feel good because you've been through those 10 years. You've worked for it, basically.
Well, now we're getting into the challenge of how we're going to resource this. Every time that I've grown too quickly and got more staff, it leads to more overhead and costs. And I start to feed my staff rather than feed the family, if that makes sense. So one of my personal challenges is how to grow but make it sustainable. I have a development team in India, and I've been working with them for 3-4 years, and that's been a really nice model. We have a good relationship. It's taken a while to learn out how they work and what their hours are and what have you. I have a couple of administrators in Philippines, but I do need to hire more local staff because there are urgent things. When you're dealing with the likes of Dell and Telstra, things crop up during the day, and you cannot just work them out through Skype. You need somebody face-to-face. So I've got a number of contractors and part-time staff, but I need to grow that base in Australia, and it's time to start making that investment.
Wow, that's kind of neat, and it leads into the next question here. What is your business doing now? I mean, I know you're growing. Obviously, you're growing, and you're bringing on new contractors and things like that, but your business itself, what do you guys got in the pipeline right now?
We've actually just merged with another company, actually. So we're Melbourne-based. We now have a Sydney partner called Swift Productions, and we've set up a new venture called Swift inDemand. Swift comes from a design background. They do eBay templates and wonderful designs, and we do more the techie configuration and development. It's taken me a while to kind of let go, but I've realized that to scale up, you need more resources. You need other skill sets to complement what you don't have, and design was never a core skill of ours. And now I can confidently say that we've got that as part of the business, and we've got all the legals done, and it's now a unit, so there'll be more announcements to be made about Swift inDemand. But I think the power of alliances and joint ventures is untapped. And so they've got resources, I've got resources, I do my stuff, they do their stuff, and now we're a much greater unit. That's one methodology for scaling up. But I guess our other area for growth and that will need further resources is cross-border or offshore. I think the world is now flat, and any large Aussie retailer is going to be thinking about sending their products into America, Europe, Latin America. And through this M2E Pro, we can quite confidently do that. We just kind of flick a switch, a drop-down switch, and saying, right, send it into this market. And then again,
it's great, isn't it?
The orders still come through that singular dashboard. But that's going to come at a cost in terms of customer service. I just got a query 2 seconds ago from New Zealand, one of our sales in New Zealand. So it's exciting, but challenging in terms of resourcing.
So, okay, from what I'm hearing, I mean, just sounds like you got so many adventures happening and stuff like that. How do you maintain all your time in all of this? I mean, how do you keep track of what's going on with this?
That's where my closest friend, Nerida, my wife, comes into it. She often puts the brakes on because I'm the kind of person that loves going for new, ambitious ventures, and she'll say, no, do not even think about this until you've completed ABC.
Nice.
And it's good to have somebody that puts the brakes on and just kind of quietens you down, because it's so easy to go into the shiny new balls, as they say, and not pay attention to the existing business.
Totally relate.
So there's that angle. I feel having this new alliance, Swift inDemand, I've got to say, I don't need to do the marketing. Their phone rings. People ask for eBay templates. As part of that conversation, they say, oh, can you do websites? And can you link my website to eBay? The whole business development angle, I really don't have to go out and look for new business. It's just happening. The phone rings.
It's nice like that.
I don't know.
Huh?
Yeah, it's just kind of thinking about things, taking a bit more time away from being on the business and just thinking strategically. Now, wouldn't it be nice if I didn't have to send out proposals the whole time? And thankfully, that is Swift's strength, and their phones, like great SEO, and people find them. I don't have to invest in that part. I've given myself I work around the clock. I won't say this is easy. It's exciting, but it's not easy. I work crazy hours. And I've said to my wife, look, give me one more year of the crazy hours. And
then I'll ask
I'm all yours. I'm all yours then, yeah.
And then it's time then to let the good guys at Swift do most of the business. So I'm now in a kind of a handover phase. I'm training everybody on how to do this M2E magic, how to do the Magento magic. I'm letting go because I now want to not exit, but I need to take a step back because I've been doing too much doing, if that makes sense, and not enough high-level thinking. So I've given myself one more year of doing and training and handover with a view to slowly exiting and doing other personal and kind of growth areas in 12 months' time. So if we have a conversation in 12 months' time and I'm still doing what I'm doing, I'd like you to pour a bucket of that.
You should be learning golf. Go on, get on the golf course. So, we shall hold you to that. I shall put that in my calendar right now. That's great. I mean, and you know, it's important. It's nice to build the business, but it's also nice to spend time with family and actually live life. You know, it's not all, I suppose, hours and hours and hours of just sitting there and you know, it's nice to live as well. So, okay, well, we've heard about all of your successes and failures, but what did you do before all this exciting stuff? You mentioned you were a lawyer, but what brought you to the point of, hey, I'm 44 years old, let's get on the websites, let's start making money online?
Well, it happened like this. So I grew up in very conservative South Africa, and at age 18, I needed to go and serve in the army. And in those days, it was bad apartheid times, and there was no way I wanted to serve in that army. So fortunately, my family was able to migrate to Australia, which is a lovely, lovely country. Same kind of lifestyle as South Africa, but none of the bad politics and bad social conditions.
Right. Yep.
Why did I choose law? It was based on such a immature feeling of watching LA Law at the time. I loved LA Law, and I said, I'm going to be Vincent Cifuentes.
Yeah.
Based on nothing other than to get my parents off my back. Oh, okay, he'll be a lawyer, that's fine. Now, it's a 5-year course. Do I have regrets that I spent those 5 years? Not at all, because I learned so much about how society works, Australian society, constitutional stuff. So now when I negotiate on any business transaction, I feel I'm equipped to know what the structures are within which I'm negotiating.
Yep.
From a work sense, I knew it just wasn't for me. But I persisted and I got the degree and I worked in it for a year, and it proved to me that it really wasn't for me. But at least I've got that degree and something to fall back on should I ever need to.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got some initials behind your name.
Correct. Growing up in South Africa, it was very isolated at the time. There were trade sanctions. It was difficult to travel. So now I'm in Australia and I'm part of the world, and I'm going to all these concerts, Bruce Springsteen concerts, which we could never see before because it was always banned in South Africa. And I said to myself, you know what? Law is not for me, but I want to travel the world and use my kind of corporate skills. So I ended up in Taiwan, of all places, which is a beautiful place, beautiful people, great strong culture, and I learned Chinese there, and I worked in ING Barings Bank for a couple of years, my wife and I. So she joined me. She was also a lawyer, and she joined me on this kind of journey of growth. We returned to Australia to have our first child. So we've got one child that's made in Taiwan and one child that's made in Singapore.
Wow. It's an international company.
Then spent a bit of the expat life back in finance in Singapore, and on child number 2, we decided to now settle back, enough traveling back in Australia. You know, that corporate lifestyle and the expatriate lifestyle, again, was it a waste of time? No, because I feel I've experienced that. I've been part of that lifestyle, but it actually, I'm more driven by having my own little small business and growing that. And I was very fortunate, right place, right time. In the events industry, I could see this eBay and online giant starting to take shape. Australia was right at the start of that e-commerce journey. I remember doing a conference and researching on that whole online retail thing, and that's what got me interested. I started training people and holding events around online retail, and inevitably, after each event, they'd stop me and say, "That's great, but can you just do it for me? I don't have the time or the resources or the knowledge to do it."
Excellent.
And you probably find this yourself. Your clients or your customers push you in areas that you never thought you'd go into, but because they are so nicely and they're with you for the journey, you say, "Look, I've never done this before, but let's do it together." It kind of moved on into consulting, then moved into management services where we are today, and now it's moved into Magento development, etc.
And admit it, sometimes it's just hard to say no.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a failing or a strength. On balance, I think it's a strength. I don't believe clients or customers or shoppers want to hear the word no. But if you can phrase it in such a way to say, "Look, and be honest, I have not done this before. We're going into new territory, but let's work on it together." Yeah. I think they're there with you. But if you say, "Oh, brashly, I can do that, and come a cropper,
problem,
nobody wins from that.
It's now time for the lightning round, but before we do, let's thank our sponsors. If you are an online merchant, chances are you've heard of Terapeak. Terapeak helps online merchants like you by providing in-depth analytics to help you pull back the curtain on your competitors' behavior, pricing techniques and strategies, supply and demand, category and product trends, and customer purchase patterns. Sound intense? It is. Terapeak is the leader in e-commerce market analysis, dedicated to helping online merchants grow their business and become more profitable. How cool would it be if you could know the new and emerging opportunities? Terapeak delivers market intelligence that is both meaningful and actionable. Terapeak analyzes over 2.4 billion transactions per year. How many of those will be yours next year? After all, if your competitors see the value in Terapeak, shouldn't you? Go to www.soyouwannasellonebay.com/Terapeak to sign up today.
So what was your biggest fear of starting a business?
Homelessness, just being totally on the street. And I still think about that. How could I look my children in the eye? It drives me. It's a negative, but it drives me.
Yeah. Fear of not having any money. Is that the fear?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what's one piece of advice you'd give someone just starting out on a business?
The 10,000 hours. I have trained so many people that heard about this eBay thing or website thing and think, okay, we're going to become overnight millionaires. And it's not the case. Persistence, mistakes, successes, more mistakes than successes. And I really do believe in that 10,000 hours.
Yeah, it's a get-rich-slow scheme, isn't it?
Correct.
Yep. All right, so if given the chance to start all over with the knowledge you have now of your personal life and business itself, what one thing would you do differently?
Focus. I have gone too wide. The amount of offerings that we give to our client base is supreme, and there's not one customer that takes up all of them at the one time. So I probably should have been more strategic and just done one thing and done it supremely well, rather than be too broad and know that there's some areas that still need improvement.
Yeah, so powerful, that one. Yeah, I actually have that problem. So when you started your business, how much confidence did you have you could actually really make money from all of this?
Research. That research told me. I'm going to share with you a very quick story, but I think it's an important one. I went around this business on a whim. I had done some research to say that online retail was going to be a big thing in Australia and around the world. And I managed to persuade my wife that this was the right thing to do. Now, I was working at that time in the events industry. I told my wife, "Can you help me market this baby while I've still got a full-time job?" And she said, "Sure." And I remember her first presentation she made to a local government association about holding eBay seminars. I called her after that first presentation. I said, "How did it go?" And she said, "No, not good at all. He just didn't bite. He couldn't understand why people would pay for these seminars. We should be giving it for free." I said, "Never mind. Just keep trying." The next day, I went to a business networking session, which I never go to business networking sessions if you're in the events industry, but it happened to be in the building next to where I was working, and it was an interesting speaker. So I went late. I had a bad attitude. I went late. There were 400 people in the room, and the speaker spoke. There was a few questions and answers, and then people filed out because it was a business breakfast. They had to go to work. So I was still eating my breakfast, and one lady kindly sat next to me while I was finishing my breakfast, and we made small talk, and she said, what do you do? Well, I said to her, what do you do? And she said, I work with Telstra, which, as I said, is a very large telco company. And she said, what do you do? And I said, I've just started an eBay business, and we're training people in. She said, is your business name inDemand? I said, yeah.
Wow.
She said, you won't believe, I got a phone call yesterday from XYZ local council. They're so excited. They want Telstra to sponsor these eBay seminars. And you know what? We're going to do it. Now,
Nice.
there is no exaggeration. 400 people, and I'm sitting next to the person that is the only other one that knows my business name. And so she gave me immediate confidence that this concept had legs. Telstra was excited. The guy at the council was just being standoffish. He didn't want to kind of show his cards, but he was very, very excited about the concept. And Telstra did sponsor that event, and they sponsored a number of events after that. I was so lucky, time and place. There's no such thing as coincidence in my view, but that gave, I've known from day one that this concept had legs through a chance meeting.
Wow, that's just an amazing story, man. That really is. It's just, I love it. I love it when that sort of synchronicity, and like you say, I don't believe in coincidences as well. It just sort of, you're there, this happens, and boom, it's beautiful.
I am prone to exaggeration, but you've got to believe me, there is nothing exaggerated in this story.
Jeez.
All right, yeah, so that's awesome, Miles. Let me ask you a question here. What research did you do to confirm that your business would take off? I mean, obviously, were you in a situation where you had income coming in and you started inDemand, and, how did that kind of all come together?
I did it gradually. I told you I had this fear of being penniless, and so I kept my day job while researching the next venture, which was eBay training. I did a lot of internet research, and my wife happened to be working in market research at the time. And so she was doing focus groups, and she was kind of investigating shopping habits. And out of these focus groups, she was starting to get inklings that people were gradually going online and wanted the convenience and the anonymity of going online and just looking at products. So that market research reinforced my market research on the web. But I guess the message is I didn't give up the day job and just, take 3 months off sabbatical to study this. It was done while working.
Oh, that's pretty boring. I'm just kidding.
That's it, yeah. Okay, and the final question. I mean, we've heard some tools, and you're obviously a big fan of M2E Pro and stuff like that, but what tools do you use in a daily business to sort of keep your business running sweet? I mean, you talked about the M2E, but what about like Time or other tools that help you along the way?
There's two that come to mind. Excel, Microsoft Excel has powered my business. Little old Excel. It's again like Photoshop and Magento. It is so functional, and people only use like 1 or 2/10 of the functionality.
Absolutely.
But I'm very fortunate to have the ability to program macros. I do so many client reports for these brands that we manage. I've now automated it through Excel to generate sales reports, traffic reports. So we input the data from external sources, and then I press a button and up comes the report, and the clients they get a lot of value from this. So I use Excel a lot, CSV files. I can't stress how important, if you're going to work in a business like this, data is important, and data management, columns have to be precise. You need to understand Excel. Don't underestimate the power of Excel. The other new tool that I've come across is a wonderful free project management tool, task management tool, which you probably have heard of, Trello.com. I love Trello.
Okay.
I love Trello. I work with my developers overseas through this. So we used to have Skype conversations and things would get lost on the Skype history. But now everything gets documented on Trello, and you can see real time as it moves from to do to doing or done. And you can add in comments and add in files. And I highly recommend Trello as a business management tool.
That sounds great. I mean, we've never actually used that one before. I'll have a look at that one after this one. So that's Trello.com, yeah?
Correct.
Well, that's brilliant. Well, that's the end of the lightning round, and it's actually sadly time to say goodbye. We'd like to thank our special guest, Miles Clemans, for taking the time to come join us today and share with us your great experience. I mean, you've got a very business-minded sort of style about you. The thing I do like as well is you mentioned you don't actually have to be a teenager, building apps in the back store to actually make all of this work. You can be 44 years old and live in your dreams. So it's been really great to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. We certainly appreciate your time, and Can't thank you enough. It's been a very enjoyable conversation we've had, and I know our listeners will enjoy it as well.
Thanks, guys. I've enjoyed every moment.
Yeah, it's been great. Well, we'll post all today's show notes on our show notes page, which can be found at www.soyouwantasellonebay.com/Miles Clemans. But before you go, Miles, please tell our listeners how they can contact you. What's the best way to reach you?
Best to go through www.inDemand, one word, INDEMAND.com.au.
Excellent. Any Facebook, Twitter stuff, or just through that?
You'll find me on LinkedIn as well, but best to go through inDemand.
Okay, not a problem. Okay, so thanks for all the information, Miles. We wish you continued success. From everyone here at So You Want to Sell on eBay, I'm Ali Young.
And I'm Ron LeBeau.
Well, that's a wrap to another awesome show. Don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes at soyouwantasellonebay.com/iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at Your eBay Podcast and Facebook at So You Want to Sell on eBay. And we can always be found at www